Can you really get an SM7B sound on a budget mic? One of these costs £350, one of these costs £90, and one of these costs £10. And I'm going to guess you can't tell which you're listening to right now because I got the order totally wrong. So let me know which you think is the cheap mic, which is the medium price mic, and which is the expensive mic. You should be able to tell, right? So the SM7B is an absolutely classic microphone, which I'm sure you all know well and love. My favorite microphone of the three for live vocals is the Sontronic Solo. And the other microphone we have here is made by Pyle and costs just £10 brand new, including a cable, which is pretty mad. And I've put it in a nice 3D printed house, so it looks a little bit nicer too. But let's discuss the mics a bit more now and see if you've scoped this out yet. So the Sontronic Solo, I think, is a really nice microphone in terms of EQ before you even have to do any processing. It kind of sounds good straight out the box. I've turned quite a few people onto this microphone who don't know about it, and for me, I think it's a really, really nice microphone. I'm not a massive fan of the Shure SM7B, so I try to not use it where possible, and the Sontronics kind of stepped in as a really nice, a really nice option around the same amount of money. And for me, it sounds really, really good straight out of the box. They're made here in England and are really, really good quality. And the aftercare is absolutely exceptional. Of course, I'm sure you've all heard a Shure SM7B. It is essentially a 57 in a better housing, which is kind of where I got this idea. The Pyle is kind of a 57 clone, and the 7B is a 57 in a better housing with a few extra options, so it makes for a great broadcast mic. So yeah, I'm sure if you haven't seen an SM7B, you've definitely heard one on a podcast or some type of show, or even possibly on YouTube. They tend to be held at the minute. That's a thing for some reason, holding your SM7B. Yeah, it's not for me, but it might be for you. It might be a really cool option. I guess they look cool. I remember the first time I saw an SM7B was a MySpace session for Circa Survive, which is actually where my band got the idea to use them live. So we used an SM7B as a live vocal mic for quite a long time, and I think it sounded absolutely great. The rejection is so good out of the box, and it means that if you've got a really loud drummer, I'm looking at you, Chris Cole, if he's out there. If you've got a really loud drummer, it's just so good at rejecting them. And it's a lovely, pleasant sounding microphone, really, really easy to mix. I think it is actually a great live choice if it weren't so ridiculously expensive, which is kind of where I got this idea. If this £10 microphone or my Sontronic Solo, wherever that might be, if they sound just as good as it, then why did we ever bother taking that microphone out? I'm really not sure. As for the Pyle, I don't know anything about this mic. I've never heard of the company Pyle. I don't know if you've heard of the company Pyle. Apparently, they're an American company. I don't know if that's true. I'm not entirely sure, but they are apparently an American company. But this microphone is £10, so it's obviously built in China. And it looks so similar to a SM57 that I'm guessing that's the vibe they're going for. But it might sound good. I actually tested this a little bit before this video, and with a little bit of EQ, I got it very, very close to the SM7B, surprisingly close to the SM7B. it wasn't the same. Let's face it, it was never going to be the SM7B, but it was pretty close. And I think that's quite impressive for a £10 microphone. A microphone that costs £10 to sound as close to a £350 microphone. It surprised me. And by the time you've processed it a bit, it sounds pretty decent in my eyes. I think you would probably get away with this mic. I think, especially once it's gone onto YouTube and that's compressed the audio, it's probably more than good enough. And maybe even for live situations, it might do the job. Now, the case I've used to disguise this Pyle mic is actually designed by Caleb Pike of DSLR Video Shooter. I think he made this for the Shure SM57, and it fits this Pyle mic. It also fits a Behringer mic, I think. But in reality, I think it will probably fit any 57 type chassis because they're probably all made in the same place anyway. And this one cost me less than £1. It cost me less than £1 to print. So all in, if you discount the fact that the Pyle mic came with a lead, because we're never going to use that lead, it probably cost me £10. You know, £1 to print the chassis. We'll say that lead is £1 because it's not worth much more. And the microphone was £9 then. So £10 total for an SM7B clone. Like I said, I'll drop a link below if you've not seen this mic shell. I'm sure you have. But if you haven't, I'll drop a link to Caleb's video where you can watch him print it out. And you can go to the website. It's totally free to download, which is so generous. Because I'm sure it took a load of time for him to do that. And talking about 3D prints, there will actually be a video coming out soon with some of my favourite live sound 3D prints. If that's been released, then I guess I'll stick it up in the corner. And if it's not there, then it's probably not been released yet. So maybe you want to subscribe and wait for that one, because there's some really good 3D prints that will save your life if you got a printer hanging around. Now, it has to be said that each of these mics do sound different out of the box. I've done an EQ match between the SM7B and the Pyle to try and get them as close as possible. But in reality, there's always going to be some post-production happening on your mic. And if you're not doing post-production, please spend the time to do it. It makes a huge difference. But I think it's only fair that we do hear these mics without post-production, because I think it will probably make this a little bit easier. So now you're hearing them without any EQ or processing at all. So this is just straight into my interface, which is an Audient ID44. And I've taken all the processing off. So there's not the match EQ. That's gone, and I've also taken off what I would usually add to these microphones, so they should sound absolutely bare what's coming out of the XLR lead. Can you tell which of these mics cost £10? I think it will become clearer. I hope you will be able to tell which one of these costs £10, because else I've wasted a huge amount of money on microphones. I mean, I'm sure that won't be a surprise for a lot of you. I'm sure a lot of you have wasted quite a bit of money on microphones, but hopefully you can hear the difference now that that EQ's been taken off. I don't think it's super obvious, and it's probably even less obvious over YouTube with all its compression, but hopefully you can tell a little bit better. But let's put it back on, because I do think you are going to do some processing. So let's process it again, see if you've got your mic choice yet. So now's your choice. Put it in the comments below. Don't cheat. Don't go past this point. Is this the cheap microphone or the expensive one? A, B, or C? You should know by now. If you don't know by now, well, I'm going to give it away in a second anyway. But please don't skip ahead until you stuck it in the comments below which one you think is the cheap one. And edit it afterwards if you think that actually you got it right or wrong. I don't mind. But I do want to know which one you think was the cheap one right now. So stick it down there. It's not going to hurt, and it's going to help me. Chuck me a like if you like. Subscribe for more. but let's keep talking. So we can reveal the mics now. So last second to do it. 2, 1, revealed. This is the cheap mic, this one in the middle. B, if you like. I've been quite impressed with this microphone considering the price. Yes, it is a really cheap mic, and I wouldn't be surprised if you did guess this was the mic. I hope you guessed this was the mic for the sake of my pocket on these other 2 mics, but if not, I'm just super impressed that a £10 mic can sound this good. And like I said, with a little bit of match EQ, I managed to get it pretty close to my SM7B. I'll swap between the 2 now so you can hear the difference, but I think with the match EQ it's very close, and I'll stick that below. So if you do buy this microphone for whatever reason, you can stick it on, and if you haven't got a 7B to test it against, at least you can make it sound like mine. Whether that's the best 7B, I don't really know. Some people say there are better and worse ones, but it will be close to mine at the very least. Now, you might have noticed I actually put the bigger mic screen on this 7B. I can put this small mic screen on, and in the video overlays that I showed you earlier, I did have, or I hope I showed you earlier, I did have this windscreen on this mic, but actually I think having the larger windscreen does reduce plosives and makes it sound much closer to the standard 7B. So I would encourage you, if you're going to buy a screen for it, do buy the thicker one, this bigger, rounder one. It does sound fine with the smaller one, but I think it sounds better with the big screen. Now, the Sontronics Solo, I do think is a great mic, but I'm sure it did sound different from these 2, and I kind of put it in there as a bit of a red herring. Like I said, I think it's such a good mic without any processing. I actually just put the same processing as the other 2 mics on this one without the match EQ, so I would have thought that maybe it isn't. It probably did stand out a bit, but hopefully that was obvious. I still think it's quite a good sounding mic, and I would still, this is the mic I would pick. I use this every week as a vocal mic, so I think it's a great choice, and Sontronics are a really cool company. They've been really great at fixing things whenever I've dropped the mic and smashed the end. So yeah, I would encourage you to check out the Sontronic Solo if you haven't already. But back between these 2 mics, and I think the real big issue with this Pyle mic and its kind of 3D printed enclosure is that it's not going to be the most durable thing in the world. I think that compared to the SM7B, with its like kind of really rugged holder and just being solid metal, if you're going to take this on the road, don't take this one. This one, it's got loads of handling noise. I've tried to avoid touching it because there is just handling noise. Sorry. But this has much less handling noise, still a bit. I mean, it's not in a shock mount, but it's just going to withstand the life on the road if you're going to take it out. And I take this mic actually quite a lot of times for recording in places that are not the most pleasant. So having the metal chassis really does help. I don't know if I would take that one, but then if I did break it, it cost me £1 to print at the very most. I actually don't even think it cost £1. I think it was probably quite a bit less than that, actually, more like 50 or 60p. But I don't want to break it all the time. It's wasteful, and you're just chucking plastic away, which is not ideal either. So I would definitely go for the more rugged SM7B if you're thinking of taking it out of the house. Like I said, though, I do think the 7B and the Sontronics are great microphones for live use. I've used both of these on vocals, I've used them on guitars, I've even used them on snares. So I think they are a really, really, really good choice as we go between them. And I just think the Sontronics sounds really nice with nothing on it, which means that you just don't have to do much live, which really saves me time and effort. And I find the 7B is very similar in that fact. You know, I don't have to do a load of processing, but I can. I can do a load of processing, and it will just sound better. But in general, I think these are both great microphones. Hopefully you like them both too. Now, one of the worst bits about this Pyle is actually the mounting system is pretty rough. I think it is okay, but not really the best thought out system. I can't move this at all. Sorry again for the noise. I can't move this mic at all. It's kind of stuck in its position. I would probably put a threaded insert in there and try and get it on a standard mic clip if possible, but it's 3D printed, so you could do that quite easily. And actually there is a file to make this fit like a boom arm, so I'm sure it would make it better for these two arms as well. I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. This is obviously a very cheap microphone. This is a bit more expensive, and this is very expensive. I think I paid about £350 for this microphone, but the 7B is a lot cheaper secondhand now. I've seen these going for like not much over £100, which is way closer to this, and I would pick this microphone over that one. Just for its flexibility more than anything else. Like, this is one of my favorite vocal recording mics. I use it for all these videos. But I know that the Podcaster Pro, which is like another Sontronics mic, is based on this capsule. So it probably sounds very similar to this microphone straight out of the box as well. And again, that's the same sort of price. Nice colours, comes in loads of colours. I'll put them up somewhere, but yeah, it's a similar price to this one, and I don't think it's a bad shout. So, you know, if you've got that £150, you could get one of these, but you can definitely get one of these, like, and you know it's a real one. I know there's some fake SM7Bs, but that's not going to be the case with the Sontronic. If you only have £10, then honestly, you could do a lot worse than this dynamic. I think a £10 dynamic is going to be a huge amount better than a £10 condenser, and it doesn't look terrible. You know, if I was shooting a video of this, I don't think many people would notice that it is drastically different to this in terms of looks. Yeah, it doesn't sound as good possibly if you got it wrong, but it is £10. It's £10 and a bit of 3D printing. If you haven't got a printer, I think Caleb Pike actually will print these for you and send them out to you as well, which is super, super useful. This is in the 57 case, by the way. It's not in the Behringer case. This is just in the 57 case. So you don't need to print the other case, just the standard 57 case. But the kind of end goal is stop using terrible cheap video mics, get a dynamic, not a condenser, and a decent audio interface, and it will sound 10 times better with a bit of processing. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these mics. They all sound pretty decent. You can get them all there with a bit of processing, and that's much easier to do nowadays. I've put the link below if you want to just cheat your way to get it to sound like this one. If you want to check out another video where I talk about mics, you want to check out this one. If you want to subscribe, go here, and until next time, bye.